Me chest black. He'll be coming soon. Can't let them find this.
Welcome to the Iron Seas. It is me, the ultimate Kahuna. And today I am joined by my little friend
AC Pritchard. Hi, buddy. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm actually the adaptation of AC Pritchard. I know.
Yes, the live
Flawlessly
action
done.
adaptation, yes.
Flawlessly done because they worked closely with the author.
Of course. And today we are going to be talking about adaptation, specifically live action adaptation. It's a very broad topic, so we're going to be mostly focusing on Disney live action adaptations with a few asides to give examples of things that can be done well. But just off the cuff, how do you feel about the Disney live adaptations as a whole? Big hole, tremendous hole.
As a whole, I grew up watching Disney as a kid, much like most kids in America, I'm pretty sure.
And around the world.
Yeah.
Ironically, Disney's huge in Japan as well, but yeah.
So I have to say, there is a part of me that gets super excited when it hears that, Aladdin's back, Lion King's back,
There's a little tug on your heartstrings. You're like, I remember.
You're like, that's cool. You're like, yeah. I would like to see that in live action. You know what I'm saying?
But about 10 years of remakes and live action adaptations later, with so many flops and so many disappointments, and that little nostalgic tug on the heartstrings is barely there for me anymore. But yeah, we'll be focusing mostly on Disney adaptations and live action adaptations, specifically just to keep a slightly more narrow focus. I say back era of 2014, 2015, 2016, I was all in. Anytime I heard an adaptation was happening, I was excited.
Yeah.
I think everybody was excited. Disney in particular, they run into this common problem. The main problem being that they have two basic approaches that they can take to doing a Disney live action adaptation. They can basically recreate the film as from the cartoon directly as a live action with some necessary changes here and there, very small changes, which if it's not better than the original, there isn't a point.
Basically 1-for-1 plus, right?
Yeah, 1-for-1 plus, and often it's not as good. There are a few exceptions.
That's true.
But no, on the overall, not worth it, because the cartoon is still better. It's more expressive. It's just it's not limited in the way live action is, and the live action is not more visually interesting. It just isn't. It's a disappointing fact of life. And the other approach, which they've also taken, is we're going to change everything. Maleficent. That's a different look at the whole Sleeping Beauty story, and it was interesting. But then they decided they should do that for a whole bunch of other movies, and now every villain is somehow a good person.
We can call this one the retcon approach. So there's the 1-for-1, the 1-for-1 plus, sorry, and then there's the retcon. So yeah, most people really dislike the retcon. It's literally you're taking the opportunity to basically update this. Let's update the story. It's no, it's not about updating. It's more towards the first lane, because the 1-for-1 plus, like you said, often it's not as good, but people aren't getting angry. People aren't getting outraged. They're not being disgusted. They're just the original was better, but the whole point of seeing this was, in fact, just to see it in live action. That's actually in fact, the point.
Yeah, and then you have this other problem, because the live action Disney's The Lion King is still animated. The entire thing virtually is still animated, which means that there are two animated Lion King movies by Disney, and one is much, much better looking than the other, and much, much more expressive and interesting. If you're there are good examples of doing this. I'll use one that is, and these are almost always the exception rather than the rule. The Grinch Who Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey.
Very good example.
2000. That works because they got a couple of things. They got an exceptional actor. They had a really good director who knew how to tell this story, Ron Howard. You had an exceptional cast of very the little girl who played Lucy. Perfection.
Most of
then the live sets, the animals, the costumes, the people in the live action were more cartoony than the actual cartoon. Somehow
they got it.
They nailed it.
Yeah. That was
like
it.
There was more cartoony. Like you have to largely exaggerate. It's like the difference between like filming a movie and then having a stage play. Everything on stage has to reach and be conveyed to everybody, whether in the front or in the very, very back.
Which is why there's
everything is loud. Everything is larger than life.
Yeah.
All the dances, all the motions, all the expressions, every tone of voice, everything has to be exaggerated to a point where it is unmistakable what was meant to be conveyed.
Yes.
And that's kind of how you have to do. Like if you're doing a cartoon live action, that's kind of how you have to do it. And to do it well, you have to commit, and you have to have good acting and good direction. And it's not, you have to have every single element or it falls apart immediately.
And it's funny you bring up stage plays because, shout outs to stage, the original live action adaptations. Imagine that. You take
they were adapting like pulps and books and plays and things.
Beowulf, The Odyssey, Romeo and Juliet, Oedipus the King, Hamlet, these things, the original adaptations. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Disney can take one from that book. It's almost like somebody didn't go to school.
I know.
I didn't.
And the thing is, if they did a good, like, and the thing is, even their 1-for-1 plus adaptations, they are adding things and taking away things that are sometimes subtle and sometimes egregious that make a huge difference. It makes it so it's not even as good as the original and it's insulting because they're changing things. Like a very, very prime example was recently they had the Lilo and Stitch live adaptation.
Oh boy.
They took the
retcon.
cultural and story retcon. In the original Lilo and Stitch, one of the main primary quintessential pieces of the puzzle and what the story is actually about, not the plot, but the story itself, is ohana, or family. And then the live action literally undermines everything about that message and turns it into something else. Even if the rest of it had been perfect, it would still be a tremendous, gargantuan failure because of what they did to the actual story and the message behind the story.
So Lilo and Stitch is a great example of where they're currently at with this this, I don't know what to call it, this
culture war, honestly.
Culture war, like war model. We'll call it a war model, like their strategy, right? Because Lilo and Stitch is interesting in the fact where they're really trying to sell it as a 1-for-1 plus.
Yes,
but it's very clearly a retcon, and it comes down to several things. It's like the aliens. It's like what you said. So what they did is it's them trying to be sneaky. They think we're too stupid to notice, maybe, or maybe that we'll notice and won't care because certain other things are accurate enough. But it turns out they just kind of stuck. They kind of just it turned into kind of nepotism, right? Because you can kind of notice the characters they didn't change and the ones they did, and it raises eyebrows and some other creative choices. And it's just one of those things. It's almost like there was content in the story that was literally sniped out of it by Disney.
Well, let's start from the shark giant villain, who is kind of the main villain of this whole thing.
Badass. That guy was cool.
They cut him out. I'm like, of all the weird things to take out of it, like, really? That's it?
Cool voice actor too.
And then the evil scientist, like, definitely not based on real scientists or real life. Experiments. Definitely not sniping on cultures there. He's like, he went from the complex kind of character that he was to this very 1-for-1 villain. I'm like, you guys, like, this is the opposite of like make everything gray. You made it black and white, but in a way that's not even believable. It's not even good. They
got rid of the accent. It made him sound so maniacal. The rush, and he's saying such ridiculous things about Stitch. It's so funny.
What? Yeah.
just one example, and you can expect stuff like this in all of the retcon remakes.
Almost all of them, with the exception of one of the first ones, which was Cinderella. That is a pretty good example of 1-to-1 plus, because they didn't recreate the kind of more fantastical setting of the original like cartoon, right, animated Cinderella. What they did do was they created their own kind of visual cohesion. It was like kind of a combination of different medieval and Renaissance era kind of cultures, and they created their own look. And the romance was like it was a fine movie. I think it's a little underrated as far as live action Disney adaptations go. But another this is not Disney, but another good recent example, very very recent example of live action 1-to-1 plus. I can't believe it. I had no faith in this. How to Train Your Dragon.
Really?
Yeah. I'm shocked. But there's a couple things they did.
They got to do that 1-for-1, bro. You can't mess that up. I'm sorry. They would enrage people for sure.
And they even did something that I hate in a lot of adaptations. But they gave a reason for it, and I didn't hate the reason. It kind of made a little bit of sense, because like in the original like cartoon, it's like these are Vikings, and they are Scandinavian. That's like this is how they are. This is how they look. And then we saw the casting for the movie before it came out. You're like, why is Astrid like definitely not Scandinavian? Why are all these things going on? I'm like. But I watched the movie and they expanded the lore in a way that I didn't hate. Basically, it's like these were just dragon hunters from all over the world, like families and groups and tribes that came together to form one tribe that specifically hunted dragons, and they chose to live on Berk. Okay, and so you have Asians, you have African, you have the whole group, you have a kind of actually diverse cast, and it's kind of like I don't love it, but I don't hate it. It's maybe the best explanation they could have given, because I feel like the studio said, "Hey, this has to happen. You have to have this, this, and this." And the director who directed the original animated feature also directed the live action. And then Gerard Butler, who played voiced Stoic in the animated film, also did live action Stoic. He is punching dragons in the face, and I loved every second of it. It was great.
You gotta get.
If you're gonna do 1-to-1 plus, they even included some DEI stuff that I did not like, but they did it in a way that wasn't insulting to the audience, or as insulting to the audience.
You can make your little changes, whatever, here and there. It doesn't have to be like bulletproof. Even regarded as the best adaptation of all time, Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. Guess what? Spoilers, not perfect. It is not perfect. It's not 1-for-1.
Oh, yeah, no, Tom Bombadil isn't in it.
There's so many.
Here's a big change in the movie, from the books to the movies. Aragorn and Arwen are barely mentioned at all.
Right.
It's not even really a thing. It's almost like a footnote inside one of the timelines, or one of the non canon but non-book inserted lore, essentially.
Yeah.
But the romance in the movie is great.
Am I wrong? We're all okay with it.
We love it. I if they didn't have Arwen and Aragorn, I dare say Aragorn is better in the movies than in the books.
I dare say,
he's a more complex character. I think it was the right choice.
Shout out to Vigo. It's not to say that you can even do I'm sure there's even a good example of a retcon, right? Of a retcon remake, but we would be remiss if we just dwelled on Disney's shortcomings the entire time. They do have some credit coming their way, because why would entire generations of people, basically everybody, have that little twinge of excitement when they were first announcing the live action remakes, even though it's stuff we've seen already? Well, it's because they had us, and they had us for a reason, because they were literally masters at this at one point. It's just... And
it also comes down to brand, right? It comes down to the reasons for a live action adaptation. Number one, money, obviously, but that's just the reason. But some of the things, driving forces, nostalgia. People are nostalgic for old stories because old stories are better typically. And like Hollywood is too afraid to do new movies anymore, which is really disappointing.
True.
Brand recognition. We all know these things because we all grew up with them. We watched the crap out of them. Retention. Like they want to retain the IP. And this is maybe the worst because this is where you see them put out like, oh, we're going to spend a little bit less money than we need. I don't care how it comes out. Let's rush it. We need to keep the access and such that we paid for this IP. So we need to just pump out this piece of garbage, essentially. Yeah. That is where War of the Rohirrim came from, by the way. They wanted to maintain their access to that. That's why it is. I found out. I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Makes sense why it's such a piece of garbage. It's terrible.
Dude, if you're gonna do that, just go full on fan service. Hire a bunch of nerdy fans that love it, and then you're just like, give everybody what they want. Do it quickly. Here's some money. No, like that's what you do.
But then people financing them want them to put out messages and allegedly.
Yeah, it's stupid. Allegedly. Dude, that's one where they cranked. That's a remake. Since we're talking about remakes, where they cranked up. They didn't just take a footnote. It was quite literally less than a footnote. It was an unnamed character, and they cranked that shit up to 11 instead of giving people what they wanted.
We know which Helm Hammerhand has a daughter. What if she was the character? What's her name? We don't know, actually.
Kahuna, this is another thing just like Lilo and Stitch, where as everybody's getting roasted like Halo and all these other big series shows and movies. I don't want to talk about Halo. Just getting roasted left and right. There's the people behind War of the Rohirrim in the background like, oh, we're going to do it better. And they did it like Lilo and Stitch, where it's retcon wrapped in a 1-for-1. So they do give us very cool like Helm Hammerhand stuff going on. They're showing us, they know exactly what we want to see.
They knew what they were doing. You saw
they knew what they were doing.
They showed scenes from the Lord of the Rings movies in the trailers. I'm like,
yep,
this is bait.
And they still put her in the front. They're like, we're gonna nest this message in everything that we know that they want to see, instead of just giving them exactly what they want to see. So,
and also this is not new news, but the reason that people have stopped wanting to watch the Disney live adaptations is because it's not that they're not only not caring, it's that they are purposely subverting the message and the stories and the characters of the original stories. Snow White, like Lilo and Stitch, very recent, great example. Snow White, another reason. The grim fairy tale of Snow White is about the young, innocent, beautiful femininity and what that is meant to represent and ways to explore that, versus the aging, evil femininity of a woman who has grown bitter with age and time. That's what the original grim fairy tale was about. Yeah. And it ties into masculine things as well. There's a great video by Jordan Peterson, believe it or not, about this whole subject and about the original grim fairy tale. We might link it in the video, but yeah, no. And the new film entirely subverts it.
And their old one doesn't, right? Because the old one is an adaptation. Like I said,
it's a more child-friendly adaptation. But of course, it was for children. They didn't.
It's still examining all those themes though too, you know.
Yeah, you weren't going to have the evil queen who in the original story, evil queen is not just the evil queen or like it's the actual mother. And she wants her daughter to not be prettier, like she wants to be the most desirable woman in the land, because being desired by high-end men is like a status game for women. And so she like when the mirror told her, you indeed have a beauty that is fine and rare, but your Snow White is 1,000 times more beautiful than you are. Like in the Grim Fairy, she orders a huntsman to take Snow White out into the forest, butcher her, cut her throat, and bring her back the liver and lungs of Snow White so that her own mother could eat it.
Yep. For you.
That's how that's the villain. That's what the story is supposed to be about, and it's what a mess. What a mess.
Yeah, I think the story still examines all the themes, and what I wanted to touch on is one of my favorite adaptations of all time, and that's Treasure Planet. So
that movie is begging for a live action.
This, amen, a 1-for-1.
Atlantis,
1-for-1. But why are they avoiding this? Because they know how based it is, and they know it just draws attention and shines a light on the truth of this whole matter, Kahuna, and that's the crux of it. Instead of remaking your own things, which if you're gonna, just do one for one. Like, do what you did. Aladdin is as close to the line as you can get. As far as adaptations in general go, Disney needs to go back to finding those gems in the rough and Disneyfying them. So like Treasure Island, turning that into Treasure Planet.
That was a passion project and they buried it.
They did. There's a whole conspiracy
100%.
About that we could.
It's not conspiracy. It's
fact.
Confirmed.
Yeah, it's
fact.
Conspiracy fact. Yeah, it's not even theory. It's fact. So yeah, that's just a great quintessential example, I think, where they can identify a good story and they can add Disney qualities to it, and everybody loves it. And essentially, that's what they love. That's what they love doing with their own story, and like imbuing this message and their politics and everything into it, and changing and retconning all their own stuff. Instead of doing that, you actually can get away with that if you tastefully do it. Add a stylistic theme on top of your Disney theme, and you just take these original stories like Treasure Island or Pinocchio, whatever. All these classics. Snow White.
And now we have to talk about the other problem with the Disney 1-to-1 Plus. The Disney 1-to-1 Plus, a lot of the time what they're doing is they're doing one for one, but they're making like, oh, it's a movie, it has to be different. We can't, like, the scene that won't look better in live action. And they're doing something quintessentially wrong. They're taking away rule of cool things that make the cartoons as awesome as they are. I have two really good examples from live action Disney adaptations. Beauty and the Beast is one. I thought of all live action Disney adaptations, it's one of the better ones. It is more watchable, it is more tolerable. Like all the behind the scenes politics stuff didn't affect the film as much as they made it sound out like it would. Like, for one, they added some more music. Good, I like the music, and most of the music is good. And heck, they added a song by the Beast that is one of my favorite songs in the entire film, and it was never present in the cartoon. Cartoon is one of the best ones that Disney ever made, and they added this song for like this musical number for the Beast that is very, very good. But they took away some of the epicness of it. They tamed the Beast.
Oh.
He is supposed to be this cruel, childish monster, essentially.
Spoiled.
And they took that away, and it's like while the song was passionate and good by the Beast, like in the new film, he goes up and he sings his song because he's filled with passion. Cool. It is not, but the problem is it does not hit as hard as the original, where he's just in the tower and he just lets out this sorrowful howl, basically, of remorse, because he's doing the right thing, and it is costing him something.
Yes.
Something he desperately not only wants, but desperately, fundamental to life, needs. And it was not, and they lessened the impact of the live action. What a shame to do that. And another good example of that same idea is Aladdin. Aladdin was fun. The casting was even good. Like, Will Smith, if you're going to have someone who's not Robin Williams as the genie, Will Smith is one of the best choices. Maybe top four Jim Carrey, like AC and I talked about before the show, but maybe top four Jim Carrey. But Will Smith is a good choice. But in the movie, Jafar, he turns into he lifts the entire palace with his magic. He puts it on top of a mountain overlooking all of Agrabah, and this it's stormy and dark and apocalyptic looking.
The whole thing.
He turns into a giant snake that Aladdin has to surf and cut with a sword on the fly with no hope of success, essentially.
Dude, it gets sword and sorcery really quick.
Yeah,
really
it got
cool.
real sword and sorcerer real quick.
Yeah.
And then what did they do for the live action? Iago turns into a much larger parrot than before.
There wasn't even a parrot. What?
Iago.
What are you guys doing? Yeah. This is an example of where one for
they
one.
changed it, and it was not cooler. It was not better. They could have said we thought that those scenes in the movie would look silly if we made them live action. Sure, that's kind of BS, but whatever. Iago, the giant parrot, also looks silly.
Yes. And it's heavy CGI, so all the same elements are still there. So what's the argument? But yeah, let's be honest though. When people heard about Aladdin live action, they probably thought about that end scene with Aladdin cast to the edge of the earth in the snow, and like the palace on top of all of Agrabah and the giant snake.
Oh yeah, they got
probably
rid of
thought
that
about
too.
all that. The hourglass with Jasmine in it, giant red genie Jafar at the end. Like they probably imagined all this and were totally let down when they saw the retcon. And
It's such a shame because like they were already making different. Like I know there's budgetary restraint. I know that, but they could have done it, and it
You're
would.
Disney.
They made it less cool.
You got Will Smith. You're Disney. Like, what do you mean budgetary? What? You literally print money. So like, yeah, that's one example where like, this is why I kind of lean towards like, it's okay if it is literally just one for one, with whatever changes that have to be made, kind of thing. If, for example, Will Smith and Robin Williams, that kind of thing, or maybe you want to add more content, but it's still one for one. That would be 1 for 1 plus. So like, there's an extra scene maybe, but like, none of the old scenes are changed, right? And you know, the main ones are at least still there. People would at least, they would be like, oh, the old one's better or whatever, like you said earlier. But none of their movies would fail, right? They would be like, oh, it's whatever in live action.
I think in conclusion, we should talk about like things that helped make a successful adaptation, balancing the fidelity and the innovation of the product, because it does have to change. It is being turned into something that it wasn't before. It's now a live action movie. They do have to change a few things, but balance that. Like keep like, you want hardcore fans to see things and to have things that they love. Just they need that brought over. They like hardcore fans need to love it. If they do, the general people will love it as well. You have to change a few things. Do it in a way that's interesting. Do it in a way that's innovative and isn't just nonsense and BS. If you're going to do something, make it more cool, not less cool. Like there's a lot of opportunity for that. Have strong casting, like a really good cast and a good like script adaptation makes a big difference. Like a lot of these movies, I'm like, the acting is not even like, not only are they not cartoony like the cartoon, the acting is bad, the voices are bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, use the like whatever technology you need to make it look good. Mm-hmm. Whether it's more cartoony or more realistic looking, use that. Use practical, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original movie, live action. That's an incredible film.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah,
and with like pretty much all like real practical effects. Yeah. And if not, use really good CGI. And ultimately, if it's a cash grab, people are going to know.
Yeah.
If that's all that it is. If there's no passion behind the project, or if it's used to propagate a message, we will know, and very few people will watch it.
And so you might as well just make it 1 for 1. Just give us the same movie, but in live action, because the point is to see it in live action. Some people might have a preference. Yes, you're acknowledge that you're marketing to a niche audience already. If you want the wider audience, you got to go back to the original way you did it, Disney. And that's mining beautiful cultural classics like Treasure Island and Disneyfying them. Taking grim fairy tale classics like Snow White and Disneyfying them. That is when it's okay to change things, because you're making it your own. It's like a cover song. You're covering a song. That's what you're doing.
But
you're making it.
It shouldn't be. If you're doing that, it should be recognizable as the song, but it should definitely also sound like you.
Yes,
that's what 100%. They used to do.
They did. What's Treasure Planet? 100%.
Treasure Island, and they even had rules for it. It's like 70%. Like for every 70% old timey stuff, it's 30%. Make it 30% sci-fi.
Yeah, it's so
they
cool.
had an actual ratio,
a fluid ratio, because their team was so tight and understood what they were trying to accomplish so well that all they had to do was toss out percentages.
Yep, 100%.
Good
now,
shit.
There's a lot more to discuss here. Maybe we'll do other parts of this, like maybe like the English adaptation of anime versus the Japanese live adaptation of anime. That could be a fascinating thing to look at. But alas, this has been a discussion on the Iron Seas with A.C. Pritchard and the Ultimate Kahuna. Please join us every Tuesday at 6:30 PST, where we have our live show. We discuss movies, we have guests, we talk about books and beautiful things. See you there.